Well, greetings, Moody Theological Seminary Greek geeks, and welcome to week 3 of the course. I trust you're keeping up with some good self-discipline study schedules, as you're finding that to be necessary, I'm sure. In that this is only a 7-week course, you can expect, as you're finding them, again, I'm sure, to need about 20 to 25 hours a week to complete the work. Maybe taking some of you more than that. For someone that's really sharp, maybe a little less than that. But it's probably going to take most of you about 20 to 25 hours a week. As you begin this week, on Tuesday morning, I will be on my way to the airport in Atlanta, Georgia, flying from there to Philadelphia, to Munich, and then on to Israel to participate in the dig at Tel Gezer. If you check my Facebook page on either my personal page or my Watch the Crown's professional page, you can find information about this dig, and you can keep up with me in that regard there. But keep me in your prayers if you would. I will be grading all your material in the evenings from there, but it's 7 hours ahead of your time, Eastern time here, 8 hours ahead of Central time, etc. So I should be getting things done a little ahead of time, hopefully, but we shall see. Good bit of work ahead of me, both working on the TEL as well as keeping up with my online teaching. So I would very much appreciate your prayers. But looking forward to it. And trust you'll be praying for me in that regard. Well, take time to look at the motivational memo here, this time from Martin Luther. Trust that will keep you focused and motivated in doing your Greek syntax and exegetical method work. We are in the week 3 this week, focusing on the article, lexical analysis, validation with respect to exegetical fallacies, and discourse analysis. Your objectives here are 4 this week. By the end of the week, you should be able to recognize the most important categories of the article, both semantically and structurally. You should be able to chart a lexical study of hagiasmas from 1 Thessalonians 4, 3, 4, and 7. Using Logos Bible software and other resources we introduce you to in the reading. You should be able to discuss the grammar, semantics, and syntax of Ephesians 3, 1 through 10, and include a listing of potential exegetical fallacies or theological problems that need to be validated, and discuss the effectiveness of discourse analysis on Ephesians 3 and take a position on its usefulness in your exegetical methodology. Let me just mention here that discourse analysis is a truly, in my mind at least, helpful tool. One of the more modern, if I can use that word loosely, developments in biblical hermeneutics and exegesis. So give due consideration to that article and that discipline as you come upon it. Also, the use of the article is important in Greek, so you want to do due diligence in reading through that material and wrapping your mind around those concepts. Word studies equally are important, and you want to take time to read through Bach and Fanning to really get a good grasp on the methodology for doing word studies, and then as you put it into practice this week in your work, really work hard at understanding the process and exercising it, because you'll be doing word studies from now till the Lord comes, and you want to do these well. Well, your reading this week about the article in Wallace is pages 206 to 54. And let me mention, too, that I think possibly next week you'll be reading more on the article, but Wallace did his dissertation, if memory serves, on the article. And particularly, I think, when you get to the Granville-Sharp rule, possibly next week. So be aware that he really knows what he's talking about, as if he didn't in the rest of Greek, but he really knows what he's talking about when it comes to the article. You are reading in Bach and Fanning this week, chapters 5 and 6, 5 having to do with word studies, 6 having to do with validation of issues. And in Campbell, you're reading a couple more chapters on the basics of verbal aspect in biblical Greek, another up-and-comer in the whole discipline of New Testament Greek, the whole idea of verbal aspect. So take time as you're reading through this book by Campbell to really understand what she's saying. It can be challenging, but you want to be able to really get a good handle on this material. And then you've got an extra article here, a PDF to download and read from Sherwood, a discourse analysis of Ephesians 3, and this is what you'll be evaluating and responding to in one of the discussions and so forth. So again, what I would encourage you to do, if you haven't already discovered this, is before you do any of the homework, try to get through all the reading first. Now, don't rush, but get started right on Tuesday as the week begins, and begin working your way systematically with good self-discipline through the reading. Get through it in a couple days if you can. And then you've got time to work on your assignments and do a good job on those and refer back to the reading as you're doing them. And I'm sure that initial exposure may leave some questions, but then as you're working through your material, hopefully that will help you see what the material is stating that you've read in preparation for your homework and be able to get a good handle on that. You will be doing a lexical study chart, doing a lexical study of hagiasmos from 1 Thessalonians 4, 3, 4, and 7. And you need to use the methodology introduced in Bach and Fanning and Logos Bible software. And there's a couple links here to help you with that. But I'm going to come back and talk my way through the books in just a moment, a little bit, particularly Bach and Fanning. From the workbook, you're going to be doing questions from chapter 5, questions 5 through 28. And these all deal with Ephesians 3, 1 through 10. These are on pages, I mentioned it before, pages 54 to 59 in chapter 5 of the workbook. So I'll be working through that. And then for your discussion, your first discussion, you're going to be translating that passage from Ephesians 3, 1 to 10. You need to give your translation will be roughly 225 words. And you include observations of any challenging syntax and list at least 2 exegetical problems that need to be validated. And that should give you about 175 words between those 2 things. That is the observations of any challenging syntax and the list of at least 2 exegetical problems. And those you have to offer an initial solution to those exegetical problems as well. And once you've posted your translation and your comments here, be sure to comment on at least one of your peers' papers as well. Your second discussion is reading, after you've read Sherwood's discourse paper on Ephesians 3, you need to provide an analysis of his argument and address the following questions that are listed here. So take time to read through this carefully and be sure that as you respond and provide that analysis, that you do address these issues. An analysis is not just a rehash now. You need to analyze in an organized fashion what Sherwood has said. So it should reflect good interaction, good exposure, that you've had good exposure to Sherwood, you read it carefully, and then you're interacting with it substantively in your analysis. And be sure again that you're answering these questions. Again, the rest of the announcement here is what you're probably getting accustomed to seeing. Just a reminder of what you should be seeing in these each week, and a reminder on discussion boards. Remember, by the way, when you respond to your peers, the 3 things I'm looking for here, you see them at the end of this paragraph on discussion boards. You need to provide substantive compliments for particularly good work or insights that your peer has included. You should provide some kind, constructive criticism for how the post might be strengthened from your point of view. And you need to leave each peer with a relevant, serious, open-ended question pertaining to their post. Now, an open-ended question is one they can't give a simple yes or no to. It might be a yes or no question, but if it is, you need to ask them to explain why they're saying yes or no to the question. But you want it to be a question you've thought about based on their post as you pose the question, and a question they're going to have to hopefully think seriously about to provide a good answer. And then there's that ever-present late policy. And again, in all the information below my signature below, you do have the link to my Facebook page, both my personal page, my Watch the Crowns page. That's where you can see information on the dig I'll be on at Tel Gezer. There's already information there. I was there a month ago working on the 4-room house near the Solomonic Gate, And this time we'll be working on in and around the water system at Exeg. I know, this being a Greek course, I should be working on the Acropolis in Athens, and I'd love to, but this was the dig that was available, so we'll have to roll with this one. Now, let me go back and just address a little bit again. You've got a number of pages here from Wallace's book, his magnum opus, if you would. Very good-sized book, but this is sort of the standard authority for Greek syntax and exegetical method, particularly syntax. So this ought to be a book that's going to be in your library for years to come. Again, my colleague Ryan Heinz gave you some other books as well, and I heartily agree with what he said in that video of his that I posted. A lot of good books out there. By the way, just as an aside, always maybe check with your professors before you jump on a book, or make sure you're getting recommendations from good authorities. There's too much being published and too many that are trying to get your money. To not select your books very carefully, and your professors are good resources to validate a potential purchase or to recommend, like we did with the commentaries on Thessalonians. Then, too, you're going to be working through Bach and Fanning here. Let me just mention just a couple things. In lexical analysis, the study of words. Personally, I wrestled with word studies early on, and it took me a while to get a hang of them, but it's worth the work. Take time as you're reading through Bach and Fanning. Read through carefully, substantively. Be sure you understand what's being said. Mine's all marked up here, but the fundamental rules of word study are important. They say there's three. First, the exegete must initially pursue the meaning intended by the author for his original audience. That's known as authorial intent. And that is the hallmark of where I'm doing my PhD of that particular school, and what they're all about is what is the authorial intent of any particular passage of Scripture. So that's your first fundamental principle for word studies. Then on 138, he mentions you need to establish the precise meaning of a word, or to establish precise meaning of a word, one must recognize its possible range of meanings. There is a Greek lexicon worth getting by Lau and Nita that does just that. It gives you the whole range of meaning of a word, and then it'll give you suggested uses of the word for a particular context. And then third, words operate in a context and receive meaning from that context. So once you've got the basic meaning of a word, and then you get the you look at the range of meaning of the word, then you need to look in the context to try to narrow that range down to what is the precise meaning for this particular context, and read through what Bach and Fanning say here so you can be sure that you understand how the context can help you zero in on the meaning of a particular word. And again, you want to go through the section here, complexities of meaning, which probably now you're beginning to get a handle on that, but there's going to be a challenge here. But they go through here with some good principles for you to get a handle of. 6 of them, by the way, are listed here. And then they mention the 3 elements of a word. So you want to take hold of that. That is, a word has sign, sense, and a referent. So be sure you grasp those concepts. And then there's diachronic and synchronic word analysis that's laid out here in Bach and Fanning. So work your way through that. Be sure you have a handle on that. And then you're going to be applying these things as you work through your word studies on hagiasmos here. That'll be your first opportunity to apply these principles. So seek to do that as you're working through. There is, by the way, as you notice at the end of each chapter in Bach and Fanning, some suggestions for further reading. And those are, again, good recommendations as you build your biblical library. Chapter 6 in Bach and Fanning is on validation, exegetical problem solving. Again, work through it carefully. Be sure you're understanding it. They give you steps in the process as you go through this. So, work to master the process and the concepts. And then they tell you about how to state your conclusion. That might be good. This would be very good as you're working through the one assignment for this week. on the discussion board on the exegetical problem from Ephesians. They say one section here, just one paragraph, but it bears emphasis. Do the hard work. And I'm going to read verbatim what they say in this. Count on not being able to incorporate in your discussion all the reading and research you have done. One key in exegetical work is learning how to be concise in your statements. You've got to do all the hard work. You've got to do all the research. But you don't need to regurgitate all the research to your professor in your paper. Be selective. What is the most important points you need to bring out in all of your research? So again, do the hard work, but part of that hard work is when you've got your research done, being able to boil it down into a substantive, concise, limited number of statements. And then they walk you through a couple passages here and end the chapter with the value of validation. So take time to read through Bach and Fanning. This is an excellent resource. I'm thrilled that the course is using this, and you're going to benefit from it. Then, too, you're reading through Campbell's Basics of Verbal Aspect. And as I said earlier, this is a key concept right now, still being somewhat debated in circles, but pretty much, I think, accepted as a valid concept now. And you've worked through some of the chapters already. What is verbal aspect, the history of verbal aspect. But now you're getting into perfective aspect, imperfect aspect, and so forth. You're working through the book. This week you're working through chapters 3 and 4, perfective aspect and imperfect aspect. And if this begins to get cloudy at all, go back and review the earlier chapters. I encourage you to get, like I've said about so much of your work already, work to get a good handle on these concepts we're giving you. They will serve you for the rest of your ministry and for the rest of the time of service the Lord gives you. So really zero in on those. Well, that's it for this week. A much longer video here than in the past, but I thought it would be good and a good help to you. As always, if you have any questions, feel free to email me. I will be checking my emails, as always, from Israel while I'm there for the next 3 weeks. And you can contact me by FaceTime if you've got an iPhone while I'm in Israel. Probably want to use my gregorio@juno.com address to get me on FaceTime. You can try my phone number. I'm not sure whether I still have that number or if I'll be going to an Israeli chip. Probably keep that number, so you might be able to use that for FaceTime. Don't call me with a regular number because I don't want the bills and I probably won't answer it. You can also contact me with Skype, and Skype is just GregorioX, so you can get me there as well. The website is there, my Facebook pages, and so forth. Look forward to seeing your work, and I trust that I'm getting answers back to you. My apologies to a couple of you. I was a little slow on getting some answers back, but your work is going well, except for that first week. Some of you struggled with the syntax. That's not unusual. Syntax is sometimes as much as an art as it is a science. So really study Wallace carefully. Do your best to study the examples and understand them. And really your skill in syntax will grow with practice.